So welcome back to another virtual tasting with Vinny's Beverage Depot. I'm Pat from the Whiskey Hotline. Joe is with me as well. Our guest of honor tonight is Paul, founder of Few Spirits. Paul, thanks for joining us again.
Glad to be here,
Probably
Pat.
been about a year and a half since we did one of these.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It was good to be here.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. We want to talk about this awesome new bourbon and a bit of a milestone for Few Spirits today. So this is the Few 10th anniversary. I guess, are we early or late with this? Is there a specific date you hold to with a distillery? Is it just kind of loosely a year?
So it's a little bit loose. We tend to track it internally as August 3rd.
Okay.
But it's also historically true that I don't think we've ever remembered on the birthday. So it always ends up being like, oh, geez, it's like, it's the end of August. We missed our birthday again. So it's every single year. So it's really kind of fitting that we're late with this. But it's almost really late too. It's like, we're really about the liquid. We don't really care about the trappings. We care about what's in the bottle. And
For
so,
sure.
That's where the focus is. Like, hey, 10 years is great, but show me the liquid. And that's really always where the focus is going to be. But I mean, 10 years in craft spirits is something I'm really proud of.
You should be, man. That's a hell of a milestone. I mean, I remember early on in, our current kind of craft boom, people saying like, oh yeah, I think, most of these guys are going to last 2-3 years tops and that's it. It's because, there was still a fair amount of people out there like, well, why would I buy that when I can get Buffalo Trace all the time or something like that? Nobody really appreciated the fact that small distilleries could make some really outstanding whiskey. And it just took time, like all things, like aging the whiskey itself, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's always been tough. And I remember our first birthday kind of sitting around going, oh man, we made it a whole year. I really didn't think we were going to be able to do that. And it's still true. Like, most guys don't make it. Most businesses don't survive that first year. Or if they do, they're out by the second. It's really not until you hit your third, fourth year that you start to really get your feet under you. And it's even worse for whiskey because it takes that many years just to understand if you even have anything.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, in that 10-year span, I mean, to help me kind of wrap my head around where Few has come from and now where it's at now. How many states can you get Few in now? And how many countries can you get Few in?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, we were available pretty much exclusively in Chicago and Evanston. We were lucky enough to start off with a really strong partner and strong relationship and strong friendship with our friends over at Binny's. I remember first seeing my bottle on the shelf at Binny's and going, oh, geez, I made it, man. We're at Binny's. This is pretty amazing. It's like, so starting off 10 years ago, we were just in Chicagoland. Now we're in 50 states, 36 countries.
Wow.
I started off, it took me about 2 full weeks of work to fill a 53-gallon barrel. And now.
Holy cow.
We started off with our fermenters were about 50 gallons. Now our fermenters are 2,200 gallons. We were one of the first craft distilleries to put in a column still. And those are all great, but it's really about the liquid. And so, we really try to measure our stories, our growth based on people, because that's what matters. It's those times that you get to share with people, even if you're not there. That's what really brings us the most satisfaction and happiness is, talking to the husband and wife and they tell you about the time they spent a night with your bottle and 9 months later, their first kid was born. These, and it's silly and it's stupid, but these are the things that really, that's the real inspiration. Like it's great to make more whiskey, but what's really great is making memories. And the team that we have at Few is just top notch, ranging from me kind of at the lower level of that, great and talented people we have working with us, and it's wonderful.
That's awesome, man. So I know early on the rye got a lot of the accolades and awards and things like that. Where does your mix stand now between bourbon and rye as far as which is the lead dog for you for whiskey?
It's interesting because, like, as far as commercially and for sales, bourbon is by far the lead dog. But we built a name for ourselves real early with our rye whiskey, and that hasn't stopped. I think our rye whiskey continues to kind of be our standard bearer in the world of whiskey and whiskey aficionados. I think it's what we're better known for. But I can also tell you that our bourbon outsells rye pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
And I think it's partially just a function of bourbon, a much bigger market than rye. But bourbon's what kind of keeps the lights on. I just showed you part of the barrel warehouse, and continues on for a whole bunch more barrels than that. But it's about 70% bourbon. That's what our sales are.
About how many barrels are in that warehouse right now?
I think we're sitting in about 8,500 barrels here right now.
Wow.
We've got barrels here. We've got barrels at 2 other different barrel warehouses. And so I haven't seen the barrel breakdown recently on what's where, but we're sitting on about 9,000 barrels across everywhere. And this is our major warehouse here.
Wow.
But again, you talk about growth, 2 full 40-hour weeks, which for a craft distillery really means 2 90 to 100-hour weeks to fill 1 barrel versus what you can kind of see behind me is a little different.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have even imagined that you were thinking about that back then. I mean, it was just getting as much as you could into a barrel and hoping for the best at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think we started off pretty strong. We hit our 5-year sales goals in the first year, hit our 10-year sales goals in the third year. And we've just continued to grow, year over year, every year since. I had no idea we were going to get here. I look at, Few Bourbon is the number 2 selling grain to glass craft bourbon in the country. Few Rye is the number 1 grain to glass craft rye in the country. This is just absurd stuff to me. I look at some of the whiskey brands that we outsell or sell pretty much equivalent to it. I'm like, really? I sell what they sell? That's pretty awesome.
I figure the gin's got to be up there too, because the gins that you have are some of my favorite in the world.
Yeah, our gins are strong performers. They could even the gin continues to grow. Year over year, we sell more gin than we did the year before that. The growth is a lot smaller than the growth in whiskey because whiskey versus gin. But gin's a really exciting spirit to make. I love having no rules. Yes, there's rules, I understand, but the rules are somewhat limited, and you can go from a concept to a product on a shelf in 3 to 6 months versus maybe after 3 months.
It is funny how there's kind of no rules with gin, right? I mean, technically it's supposed to have juniper flavor as the predominant flavor and aroma or something, but like, is there some bureaucrat at the TTB who's individually nosing every gin that comes across the shelf? Like, nobody keeps track of that. How can they have a rule on that?
What does predominant even mean?
Yeah,
I truly don't know. As anybody who's tasted my gins can probably readily recognize I don't know what predominant means. But yes, there are rules, but it's not as hard to break, and there's so much creative decisions you could make. Whereas, like, if you're making bourbon, what really are you deciding? You're deciding on your small grain, and are you going to make a 3 grain or a 4 grain bourbon? As we've only done once in our entire distilling life, have you ever made a 4 grain bourbon? And it turns out that's what we released for our 10th anniversary.
All right, well, let's talk about that one first, I guess. So 10th anniversary, 4 grain bourbon. The label looks like the regular Few bourbon label, but a lot more colorful. Pretty awesome. So 4-grain bourbon. How did you arrive at that? That's not something, I mean, we see them around, but it's not usually the first thing people think of.
Yeah, so originally it was kind of a little bit of a different beast that we've never done a 4-grain bourbon. They do exist, and we wanted to try our hand at it. And then this batch was really interesting because it gave us an opportunity to do something different with it. So we used a different mash bill: corn, wheat, no, obviously corn, wheat, rye, and malt. Hadn't done that before. We used a different cooperage. We used Kelvin coopers rather than our normal barrel maker. So we went and used a stereotypical Kentucky barrel maker. We used a different size barrel than we usually use. These are 25-gallon barrels. And really interestingly enough, we shipped it down to Kentucky, where it aged for about 2.5 years prior to coming back up here to finish up aging over the next several. So it's this weird little whiskey that doesn't really fit. And I think that's what makes it stand out, in the same way that Few doesn't necessarily fit in a lot of people's preconceived notions of what bourbon is or what bourbon should be. We're an oddball, and this is an oddball whiskey for us.
Yeah, it's a fitting whiskey for that anniversary, for sure. So it
kind of combines everything.
What's the grain breakdown in here? I mean, is there more of the wheat than the rye in here? Because it's
roughly even wheat and rye.
Okay.
Now I'm blanking on it, but I think it was like 65% corn, 10% malt, and then whatever that breakdown is for the wheat and rye. And I typically don't do a whole lot of 4-grain bourbons when I'm drinking. There's a reason why most bourbons are 3. But it works here. You get a really cool and different whiskey. It doesn't taste anything like the traditional core Few bourbon. Our straight bourbon doesn't taste like this. To me, this is this cool little hybrid between Kentucky whiskey and Few, because I think it tastes a lot closer to Kentucky than most of our stuff.
I would agree with that. I mean, the standard bourbon is what, 30% rye? No, it's got a big chunk of rye in it.
20% rye,
20%.
But it uses, and it uses uses a beer yeast for the bourbon. Whereas with this bourbon, the 4-grain, we used a little bit more of a traditional bourbon yeast, and it shows. We use traditional Kentucky barrels. It shows. You still have that unmistakable Few characteristic. You can still tell that it's Few, but it's not like other stuff we've done. And I think that's what makes it neat, and what makes it worthy of being our 10th anniversary edition, is that it's highlighting some of the really cool stuff that we do that not everybody's going to be able to do, and not everybody's going to be able to pull off.
Man, it's so fruity.
Yeah.
Like unbelievably fruity.
Yeah, it's nice and fat and chewy. And I was wondering if our friends at Kelvin gave any sort of special treatment to the barrel, like maybe a toast before their char.
I've got a lot of words for Kelvin on this batch of barrels, but none of them are going to be said publicly. How's that?
Fair enough.
We like Kelvin.
We actually made a barrel there.
Yeah, once. We brought an accountant with us, and he put a stave in incorrectly, of course. That's an interesting cooperage, and I think it's cool how they use the leftover oak chunks to char the barrels and stuff like that. But it's definitely the least OSHA compliant place I've ever witnessed in my life. It's a pretty crazy cooperage like that, but you can't tell that this is a tiny barrel whiskey either. I mean, 25-gallon barrels. Not to have preconceived notions about small barrels, but this doesn't taste like it or smell like it at all. Like Joe said, it's just big and chewy, and
I think the wheat really benefits that whole mouthfeel.
It's a really rich and full flavored whiskey.
Yeah.
And so, but there are many people in the inside whiskey business that are acquainted with some issues that Kelvin had a few years ago, and this batch of barrels was part of it. So, yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
But
fair.
We'll walk away from that.
So this is really cool. So we took this into Binny's last week and get it at your local Binny's for $49.99. Pretty awesome price for a one-off collectible bourbon. You don't see that very often. How much of this is going to be around? I mean, did we kind of just happen to buy it all from you?
No, you guys certainly took a lion's chunk of it, though. We're releasing about 3,000 bottles,
Okay.
and you guys have already brought in close to 2,000.
Okay.
And based
Well-
on what I'm seeing on social media and people hitting me up, you've already sold a lot of them.
Yeah. Get it before it's gone. So this isn't, you mentioned that this is kind of an outlier for whiskey. This isn't a mash bill that you've repeated since, or were you guys tasting this as it was aging and thinking like, oh, this is pretty good, maybe we should do this again?
No, this is it. Like, we don't have any more of this mash bill in the warehouse. We don't have any more planned. If it's not currently in bottle, it is not going to exist. And so, as we're celebrating our 10th birthday and our 10th anniversary, it's definitely something for people out there to think about. I still get calls asking for, hey, I can't find your Flaming Lips. Hey, I can't find your Alice in Chains. I can't find this. I can't find that. You can find it right now, guys. Get into your local Binny's and don't miss it. Yeah, we were laughing earlier before we went live that I don't have a bottle, because it's true. I don't have a bottle. I own the company. I don't have a damn bottle yet because we're focusing on getting it out to the drinkers.
Yep.
That's what we're about. It's not about me. It's about everybody out there. And I think that this is going to be something that people are going to want to get in on. Even just that label is dead sexy.
Oh, it's so awesome.
I think that sky blue with the gold statue, it just works.
It's a great presentation, obviously. Man, this is really, really good. So limited time, get it while you can, $50. Not your standard Few Bourbon. I mean, the regular Few Bourbon we love, but sometimes it almost feels like it's a rye pretending it's a bourbon. It's even with only 20% rye, it's a spicy, brooding whiskey, and this thing is just so fruity and soft and rich.
It really is totally different, and it carries, but it's not the same bourbon. And I totally agree. Few Bourbon drinks like a rye whiskey. There's a lot of spice in there, and yes, you get some fantastic tart cherry notes, and you get some really nice sweetness. But that Few Rye is spicy. This doesn't have that same spice. Just like Joe was saying, you get that awesome fruit. You still get that cherry. You still get that fewness of the whiskey. But you haven't had this before, and if you haven't had Few in a couple of years, you tried it before, and maybe it's time to come back and check it out. This is a great time to come back and check out Few. This is a special whiskey celebrating 10 years. Right here in Chicagoland. I mean, and we are blessed here in Chicago. We've got some of the best craft distilleries in the country in Few and Koval. And I think it's really, I think Chicago should be taking a lot of pride that you've got two of the big leading lights in craft distilling right here in our backyard. Don't overlook us. Come back and pay attention. Take a look at Few.
It's whiskey worth drinking and worth talking about. That's for sure.
We love it, and we love drinking local. And just thinking, there's been so many cool limited one-offs that you've done over this time, this 10 years, which is amazing accomplishment. Is there any that stick out that are your favorite, that you miss, that you wish you could have more of, that you bottled up?
Yeah, I mean, there's always ones that I love for all different sorts of reasons. Like, this is just a great whiskey. 10 years, it's really special and it matters. I had a great amount, had a whole boatload of fun doing the Flaming Lips and Alice in Chains. We did that release party at Binny's for the Flaming Lips, and that was fantastic. I miss that. I miss doing some really cool stuff that we've done with wineries. I've done some really cool stuff with Bloodshot Records back before they kind of imploded a little bit. I've been really lucky that I get to do this because I get to really flex and be creative and make new stuff. And sometimes it works, like this 10th anniversary. Sometimes it doesn't work. And stuff that doesn't work, you guys never get to see because we just kind of bury that under the rug and we just kind of leave it in barrel. Maybe someday it'll change. The stuff that doesn't work, you got to come up to the distillery and be nice to me and I'll share it with you. The things that I love about Few are the team and the people that I get to work with every day and these great experiences that you get to put together, bringing cool stuff to market. It's exciting. And our new rock band collaboration coming out next spring, our brand new, we're introducing a new bourbon in about a month across the country that's not out yet. We're super excited about that. And we're just doing cool stuff here at Few Spirits, and come back and join us.
I was going to ask what's coming up next. I had heard rumors of a new bourbon coming soon. Can you share anything else at this time?
Yeah, we're going to be releasing our first bottled and bond bourbon in about a month. Maybe a little bit closer to 2 months, depending on distribution networks and so on. But the fact that craft whiskey is now out there putting out bottled and bond stuff, again, come back and check on us.
Yeah, that is something to hang your hat on for sure. That's awesome. Now, is that going to be an everyday thing?
We think so, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I mean, realistically, this is a bottled and bond bourbon too, but it's not bottled at 100 proof, so it's not actually bottled and bond. But it could have been.
Interesting. Didn't even think about that. What else are you doing to celebrate the anniversary? You mentioned before we went live, you were maybe going to Delilah's or something. What else is Few going to be doing around town, kind of taking a moment to toast this anniversary?
I'll be at Delilah's tonight celebrating a DJ night with Mike Smith, spinning Britpop, and so we'll be tasting off some of our tea-focused products, our breakfast gin, as well as our Immortal Rye, which I both of you guys have tried that.
Yeah, we love
and then we're having a big bash on October 1st. We've got 3 live bands. We got food trucks. We're going to be pouring 10th anniversary whiskey. We're going to have media there. We're real excited about October 1st at the distillery in Evanston at 918 Chicago Avenue, about 5 o'clock till 10 p.m. And we're just going to throw down and have a good time.
Nice.
Again, 10 years in this business is insane. There's not a lot of distilleries that make it 10 years. And
yeah, not at all.
We're proud of it.
Like a huge accomplishment.
You got some congrats from Jacob Mock here in the chat. He's asking if there's any plans for a barrel-proof bourbon or rye at some point.
We never say never as far as trying to do barrel proof. We've done it before. I would imagine at some point we may well end up doing it again, but there's no current intentions to do it. I will say that our friends at Scotch Malt Whiskey Society are releasing an independent bottling at cask strength.
Oh, that's cool.
Over the next 3 months. It's Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, so I don't know. They're doing 1 bottle here in the U.S. They're doing 1 barrel here in the U.S. I think they're doing 2 barrels in the U.K. And then our friends at Berry Brothers and Rudd are doing a couple of barrels this fall as well.
Awesome. Independently bottled Few. That I didn't think I'd see. That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. I mean, it's wild. Like, again, Scotch Malt Whiskey Society is doing business with Few.
Yeah.
We're B4, we're RW1. Few is the first rye whiskey that the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society ever bottled. And I think that just blows my mind.
Yeah, that's a couple venerated names in the independent bottling business too. I mean, Berry Brothers and Rudd has been, pretty meticulous with cask selection for a couple hundred years now at this point. That's
Yeah,
really awesome.
they know a thing or two about independent bottling, and we really don't work with independent bottlers. We get a lot more opportunities to work with them than we're going to take, shall we say.
Okay.
But when you're talking about somebody like Berry Brothers and Rudd or Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, you don't really say no.
Yeah, no, for sure. Leo pointed out in the chat here that you had a single cask nation a few years back too. And they're another one
Yeah.
where, those guys have really high quality casks consistently.
Absolutely. Yeah, we did single cask nation. We've also done with I know they're friends of yours as well over at the Boutique Whiskey Company. We've done a couple with them. But we don't do a lot. And we really kind of stopped doing a couple years ago. So it's kind of cool and different that we've got Scotch Malt Whiskey Society and Berry Brothers doing stuff now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Are they giving?
Really?
Yes, they buy new make. Actually, we've got probably 30 or 40 more barrels over there that we just pull off the side, and they're aging in their own little area. These are the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society barrels.
Nice. So they age here, and then you ship the mature, and then they bottle up over there.
Yep. Yeah, we just pull samples roughly every year. We pull a sample for them and send it over, and then they say, "Okay, harvest that one. Don't harvest that one." We have final approval. Like I'm not going to harvest anything that I don't think is harvestable. But again, with people like that, that's not really a check, because they're not going to have me harvest something that I'm not going to approve either.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So Delilah's tonight talking tea infusions. Anything new on the, when are we going to see another kind of flavored or more experimental whiskey like that, you think?
We'll see. I mean, we don't have any current plans. I think right now we're mostly focused on the 10th anniversary, the Bottled and Bond, and then our next music collaboration next spring. As far as like trying to do other, what we call cuts, like the cold cut with the cold brew coffee, or the Immortal Rye with the 8 Immortals tea, we've done it. Never say never. Odds are I'll come back to that at some point. But we don't have an intention at the moment. I did really like the cut we did with Lapsang Souchong tea. I really liked that really cool smoky flavor that we got. People like smoky whiskeys. I like smoky whiskeys. And it was a totally different and unique smoke that I had never tasted before. Maybe.
Could be something there.
Could be something there. We've got a bunch of finishes and so on. I know we just released a couple of really cool finishes at Binny's.
We got some wine finishes.
Yeah, you got some wine finishes. Those are really fun, and that's really cool. I know you guys got that. What, about a month ago? You brought those in?
Probably about a month ago. That sounds about right.
2 weeks.
Oh. Well, anyway, they're at check your local Binnies, because those are another ones that are going to be limited in and out. All right, cool, Paul. Well, congratulations on 10 years. This bourbon is awesome. If anybody watching, if you're interested, get it soon, because it's going to disappear.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, October 1st, head up to the distillery. If you've never seen that distillery, it's pretty cool that whiskey of this quality, and the fact that you can get it in so many places now comes out of that little tiny alley in Evanston is something else, because it is literally in an alley.
We have a hell of a team that works really hard, and I'm honored to be a part of it. But yeah, just like you said, check out the 10th anniversary whiskey. It's at Binny's now. I don't imagine it's going to be at Binny's for long, because people are going to be buying it.
Yep.
How many people are on that team?
Hey, I can get more.
How many people are on that team now?
We're at 8 people right now.
Wow. How many did you start with? 2? 1.
Started me alone in a room doing everything myself. Again, it took me 2 weeks to fill a 53-gallon barrel.
Wow.
Lots of places are talking about, oh, we're doing 10 barrels a day, 20 barrels a day, 100 barrels a day. It was about 2 weeks for me to fill a single barrel.
Oh,
Now it's,
we got a question from Gus here, Paul. He says, "Congrats on the 10 years. The blue corn bourbon for the Sarah Shook release was great. Any thoughts on doing other types or of a corn release?"
So the short answer is yes. So we do have more of that blue corn in barrel.
Nice.
I won't be ready for some time. I don't remember when we put it down. I want to say we put it down maybe 2 years ago. So we're years away, shall we say. Might have only been a year ago, might have been 3 years ago. I don't remember when we put it down. But that'll be coming out on the market at some point. We made a corn whiskey, a pure corn whiskey, because why not? I have no idea when or if that'll hit the market. It ain't ready.
Got to
right
bottle
now.
that in bond, man. Just have a few version of mellow corn on the shelf. That'd be so awesome.
Mellow few.
That's exactly what the target is. Let's just say we're not selling that quite yet.
Yeah.
But you're correct. That's what we're shooting for. Not right now. We're not. It's the hazard of the whiskey business.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that Sarah Shook release, and if anybody hasn't tried that, sorry, because it's awesome whiskey. And that was one of the coolest aging whiskeys that we've ever had, also because we first made it. It tasted like bourbon. And then we were tasting it while it was in the barrel. And over the first year of aging, it went from new make to you couldn't tell the difference between that and tequila. It just tasted exactly like tequila. And which is really cool. Right? Well, I can't sell tequila whiskey, so this better change. And then it just kind of resolved into this amazingly cool, bourbon. It tasted exactly. At the end, it was bourbon, not tequila. But really cool, nice kind of different flavors than you're normally expecting in bourbon.
We all
always
go through a
experimenting
tequila phase in our youth, though. I mean, that seems reasonable.
Oh, nothing wrong with tequila. I love tequila. And that tequila ocho stuff, that stuff's what you got to be getting yourselves in on.
Yeah.
But nobody wants Illinois tequila.
That is true. That's a request even we haven't
Yeah, I
gotten
haven't
yet.
gotten that yet. Thank goodness.
You know tequila that's made in Illinois? No, I don't.
No.
But I love the flavor of tequila. Just I'm not going to make it.
You could try finishing it. We've only seen one. We've seen a tequila finish rye. I don't know if we've seen a tequila barrel finish bourbon. I don't know.
Well, the Allison Jeans that we did was tequila.
Oh, that's right.
finished.
That's right.
Mezcal.
That has been done. We've done it. It's like the old South Park. Simpsons did it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Paul, really appreciate your time tonight, man. Cheers to the 10 years. It's a hell of an accomplishment. It's been a great time to be a whiskey drinker in Chicago. You have a distillery of this quality pumping out whiskey for as long as you have. Like Paul said, if it's been a while since you taste something from you owe it to yourself as a whiskey drinker to check it out. And you certainly owe it to yourself to snag one of these. This is an awesome, awesome whiskey, and it is not going to be around for long. So, Paul, thanks again, man. Hopefully we see you on October 1st, and have a good night, man.
See you, everybody.
Enjoy
Be
the
well.
Lilas.
Thanks.
All right, see you, Paul. See you next time. Everybody else, we'll be back in a couple weeks with somebody else. Keep your eye on the webpage, Facebook page. We'll see you then. Thanks, Paul. Cheers, everyone.